This is issue 36 of Build a Spitfire Mk1a, and today we're going to be connecting the landing gear. What could possibly go wrong?
For those who fought in the Battle of Britain, it was a battle for survival. For the free world, it was a breathless moment in history. For failure would have plunged mankind into a new dark age. Never have so many owed so much to so few.
So hello, welcome to issue 36 of Build a Spitfire Mk1a, and today we're going to be connecting the landing gear. So the parts that we have for this week are, unfortunately there's very unimaginative naming. We have 36-1, which is this plastic gear casing, as you can see there. Piece number 2 is imaginatively known as gear casing, and that's plastic, just in case I didn't say. Piece 3 is cog assembly cap, and you can see there. And just bear with me a sec, I'm just going to adjust the lighting a little bit. So piece 4 is a cog, and that's what I recognise as a cog. Now, my experience of plastic cogs on the Spitfire is not very favourable, I'm afraid. So we'll see how this one goes. Unfortunately the parts are white. There we go, that's better, isn't it? So it's very hard to see the detail when you've got white light. And then piece 36-5 is a shaft and cog, and if you just give me a second, this is all wrapped up in a bag. I don't like to just pull the packaging apart because you do run the risk of damaging the part. And also, as you know, things do have a habit of jumping out of my hands as well, as you would have seen in previous videos. So let's carefully cut this away. There we go. So this is plastic with a little metal rod running through the middle. So obviously there we go. Now the problem I find is that cogs need to be rather well detailed, and to get the detail you need plastic, but at the same time plastic isn't as strong. This does actually seem quite strong. I'm just playing with it with my fingernail, not going in to deliberately damage it, but we'll see how it goes. Right, okay, so I thought I was missing a part there, and it's actually there. Very hard to see, so I'll get that with my tweezers. And what we have here, this is called landing gear connecting cable. Now that's a metal cable, and it's got two little stop ends on it. So there's one end and there's another, and that's part 6, and that just leaves us with parts 7, 8 and 9. And I'll see if I can interpret this, because as you probably know with Spitfire, they do like to start putting the screws all in the same bag. So we'll use this. So we have 3 1.6 by 4 mm km screws. So let's just divide them into black and silver for the moment, and then we can take out the obvious ones. So we have 9 2 by 4 mm PB screws. So I would say this is the PB screws. So let's pop that into a middle pot. There we go, and I've just missed with 2. I should have really sorted these out before. And then we have 3 1.6 by 3 mm. So the difference, the main difference, one is thicker and one is thinner, and one is longer and one is shorter. So I think we'll take the width, the length, to identify them, and I can see that actually I can see the tops, because you've got two are countersunk and one isn't. So right, so we have, there's not a lot of difference between them, but I think these are the 3mm, so these are stage 9 or part 9, and the 3 countersunk screws are the KMs, and we will confirm that as we build, so I'll be able to confirm if I've got it correct or incorrect. So we will also need the assembly from the previous stage, which is this lovely motor with a wire, and we will need that for stage 1, and we will also need part 2, which is the gear casing. So in the orientation they have in the magazine, they have this this recess on the right, and the motor, we have the cable connector at the back, and that's going to go on nice and simple like that, and you'll see that gearing is going through. Unfortunately I need to turn a page. I think we can guess what step 2 is going to be all about. So we need to assemble that with the 2 km 1.6 by 4mm screws, and that's quite handy because they're going into metal. So the 2 screws that we're a little bit confused about is km and pm. So all that's going to happen is if we put the wrong screws in, it won't fit. So just bear with me 1 second. Oh baby, I'm actually just having a little look. PM 1.6, 1/3, right. So I think this is the, right, I think these are actually the PM screws, the shorter ones. So and that makes sense because PM could mean metal. So I'm going to pop that through there like that, and that's going to make a connection with the sorry guys, I've just lost the screws. Good job they give us a spare, isn't it? So that's going to make a connection with the motor, and this second screw is a little bit tricky to sort out because there isn't a lot of room there with the casing, so we'll just possibly need another screwdriver. There we go. And I'm going to screw that in fairly hard, not so hard it squashes this plastic. So my reservations are out regarding the screws, but I think that is the correct screw. So stage 3, we need to take part 4, which is the landing gear, the cog part, and we also need to take the landing gear cable, and you'll see there that right, so this is part 4. So you'll see that there's a circle there with a hole cut through the middle, and what we're doing is we're placing this wire through the middle. Now that's going to be quite tricky to balance, so I'm going to pop it in there like so, and then on the top of that we take our part 3, which is the cap. Now you'll see there's a recess in there. Can we focus? There we go. And that recess will go across that cable like so. So that means that we can still move this cable backwards and forwards, and that also creates just a little hole on the end. Just out of curiosity, what I'm going to do, yeah, look, it's actually impossible to insert it the wrong way. So, and then let's turn it right round. Yeah, so you can turn it whichever way round you want, that way or that way, and that's absolutely fine. So that can go to one side. So the next step is to take our assembly from earlier in the stage, and we need to pop in part 5, which is the cog and shaft. Now on this cog and shaft you will see that it's not a circle inside. You'll see it's actually got a flattened side, and that will marry up properly with this motor, which you will see also has a flattened edge. So what you'll need to do is pop that on and then just rotate the part. See there, it's not fitting, but as you rotate it, just wait for some focus to come in. As you rotate it, there you go, you see it slip in. Okay, and then the next step is to place our cog and wire from an earlier stage. Now what's going to happen is, let's get it the right way round, shall we? Let's get it the orientation that they want. So this is going to go into there on this end, and that I don't think fits well. Right, okay, I see it now. So the cog needs to be this way round. So you see that you've got the shaft and cog kind of the top left, and on this cog and shaft you've got 2 pins, one on that end and one on the other. With the cog part furthest to the left, you need to just, let's do it this way, you need to line those cogs up into those little holes there, and that's what you'll end up with. Okay, so what's going to happen is when that motor turns, it's going to turn this cog, and that cog will turn, and that will make this wire shorter, which will pull the landing gear in, and then as the cog turns back it will release the landing gear. So the next step then is to take our gear casing, and that needs to go over, you'll see you've got 4 screw holes there, and you've got 4 screw holes there. This is going to go over. Now you've got a circle part here on the right, and the longer, you see you've got 4 protrusions, the longest protrusion goes on the left. So when you've placed it on, it will look like that. So you've got this circular hole there is covered, and then your longer protrusions there, and we will fasten that with four of the PB screws, which are the black ones. So they will go in one there, and again, as I always do, I'm just placing them in just enough to hold, and I am aware I've got a screw attached to the screwdriver. Right, that one doesn't want to go in. That could be because it doesn't want to fit. Could be, yeah, I think it's because I didn't quite have it in properly. There we go. So that's just gone in enough to hold. I'm having a bit of a struggle with this one actually. So let's see what happens when we put the third one in. There we go. It is actually quite tough to put those screws in. You can really feel those screws biting into the plastic. So it looks to me like if you ever undo these screws, you may never get them back in again. So, and the reason you won't get them back in again is because the way they bite into the plastic, you won't necessarily find that thread again. You might be lucky, but obviously the simple answer is to get it right the first time. So I'm being careful where I hold this, because if you hold it wrong, you've got this circuit board there. There we go. So that housing is in really well. Right, there we go. So that's that stage done. So the next stage we need to bring in the actual body. Okay, so I now have the actual assembly in front of me. I've assembled the landing gear. You might notice from the mod videos that the landing gear hasn't been attached. I actually took it off to repaint, as you can see there, but I have now assembled them again. I do have a couple of odd bits to do to them, but nothing that I need to take it off again. So first thing I would suggest is you check your landing gear, that it operates okay, and I can see that mine does. One thing I noticed on mine was that that will lift the landing gear up, but what pushes the landing gear down is the springs. I also have a confession to make. I double checked the instructions, and I looked closely at the screws, and let me explain that the screws that I used to screw the motor on with was incorrect. The screws that you use for the motor are these countersunk screws. What I actually did was I placed the two screws on a flat surface. One is supposed to be 4mm, one is supposed to be 3mm, and I noticed that they were both exactly the same height. And the reason they're both exactly the same height is because with a countersunk screw, the length of the screw doesn't actually start until the end of the countersunk bit, whereas with a normal screw that's not countersunk, let me just get one out for you. I know you can't see it because of the focus, but with a normal screw it's just the length of the thread, but because the cap is a lot smaller or a lot bigger on a countersunk, the actual countersunk head is about 1 millimeter longer than a cap screw. So in actual fact I have changed it, and I got very lucky because these actually went in okay, so they're in nice and tight. So that's in absolutely fine now, so be careful there, guys. So stage 9, we need, in fact I'm going to pull the camera out a bit. So what we're looking for is 4 connections, which looks like it's going to be these 4 pegs here. These are actually part of the inner wing, right on the very edge. Let's see if I've got that correct. So the motor wants to go to the top left of the motor housing, and we'll place that on there, and yes, I can see that that is the correct placement for it. So we now need to pop in 4 PB screws. So that's the black screws, and the picture in the magazine does show that we're using black screws. So as always, I'm going to pop 1 screw in, just enough to bite. I don't know if that's going in. Yeah, that's gone in fine. Then I will pop in the opposite screw, which in this case for me is the bottom right. Remember, doesn't matter which screw is your first one, and I've got to be honest with you, there's actually enough screws in there now. This is one thing I often say about the part works, is that they actually use more than enough screws. So this is actually quite firm with 2 screws. So by the time we get the 4th one in, I really don't think that motor is moving anywhere. So that's the 4th one in, just enough to bite. So let's fully tighten up these screws. I'm just going to give it a little bit of support underneath. There we go, that's that one in. And the second one is in. 3rd one. And now for the final one. That's in. So that motor housing is solid, which of course will add just a little tiny bit of strength to the wings. So we've got this wing strut there and one there. Now we've got them being held together by this motor. So yeah, it's all coming together. So next what we want to do is stage 11, and I think it's getting complicated now. Identify the landing gear attachment, which is here. Let me bring the camera in because it's very hard to see. So there is the motor gear attachment. Slip the end of the landing gear connecting cable between the jaws of part 27.4 you may find it helpful to use tweezers. So let's see. This is actually a very stiff cable. So what we're aiming to do here is right, okay, it's actually simpler than I thought. So right, so there is actually a tip. I've just discovered it myself by accident, but it is actually a tip. It says in the next 2 steps the landing gear connecting cable is fitted. This is a tight fit. Temporarily raise the left wheel assembly so that a slightly longer length of cable is available when fitting. Right, so what we're actually going to be doing is if we lift the wheel up, we can see there's a gap there. See where I've just put my tweezers. What we're going to do is we're going to pop this wire through there. We're going to let it go, and then we're going to pop a screw into there, and that's a PM screw. So what I'm going to advise here is that we actually pop the PM screw in first. And let me explain how I'm going to pop this screw in. So we are literally, I'm going to have to move my camera, I'm so sorry. So we're going to pop the screw in just a little bit, but we do not want the screw to obstruct that hole there. The reason we're going to pop it in now is I feel it's very difficult to put a piece of wire through there, hold it down, maneuver it around, get the screw in. So I don't know if you can see there, as I let go of the wheel, that screw then falls into place, just the right place for us to apply the screw. And what I'm also going to do, I don't know if this is going to be a good idea or not, but I'm just getting myself 2 pieces of masking tape ready. I'm thinking what might be a good idea is to slip that wire through, pull it a little bit too long, put a bit of masking tape down to stop that wire from disappearing, and then screw the screw in, and then once we've done it, we can remove the masking tape. So let's try and get this through. So we've twisted that through fine, and I don't think I'm going to need the masking tape after all, or maybe I will. Right, so that wants to twiddle off wherever it wants, so I'm going to let go of the landing gear slightly with my thumb there, and I'm just going to let the landing gear go just enough just to get my screwdriver in there. And you can't actually see this, but I'm supporting the bottom of the wheel at the same time. Now that's as tight as it wants to go. I was expecting that to go tighter, however that's not going anywhere. So while I was supporting that like that, let me move my camera up, and then I'll show you the position of the rest of my hand. So this is a bottom view of how I was holding the wheel as I was popping that in. So that, I think I'm happy with that. I was expecting that screw to go in so tight that it would actually pull that gap together. Let me just bring the camera in. So you can see there's a little gap there, but that is actually sufficient to stop that from going through. So yeah, that's fine. So stage 12 is exactly the same, but on the other side. So what we will do is we will get one of our screws, and I'm gonna first of all remember, right, so what I'll do is I will partly apply that screw just a little bit, and then bring my landing gear up, make sure it's not obstructing anything. And this is going to be tricky because I'm right-handed, so I was using my left hand to support and my right hand to do the work. This is on the opposite side, So we'll see how we manage. So right, so we get the wire and we pop that through there. It is still tricky to do. Go on, go in there. Go on, there we go. So that's in, and I just want, in fact I'm going to support that with my tweezers, and that's fallen out. So we'll just try again, persevere, have a bit of patience. So I'll get my screwdriver in there, and of course I've blocked all the light out now, haven't I? There we go. Right. Okay, I suspect I used the wrong size head as well. I don't know if you heard that clicking towards the end, but usually you'll hear a clicking when the screwdriver's falling out, and it's falling out because I've used maybe too small a screwdriver. There we go. Right, so I've actually pulled that a little bit too long, so what I'm going to try and do is just manipulate that and just push that, and there we go, that's in. So it says in big massive capital letters, do not be tempted to test the motor at this stage, as you could damage the connecting cables. So that is a bit of a shame. So we can't actually test it, but I can already see how it's going to work, and this is now going to bother me. So let me turn it upside down, and then I'll move the camera up, and I see I've lost a wheel. That's okay, because I don't glue my wheels in yet. So what's going to happen is inside there's a motor, and as it turns it's going to pull both sides of the cable in. As it does so, it's going to pull the wheel in. Can you see? And then as it lets it out, the act of the spring is going to allow the wheel to go back. So on the other side, as it pulls that wheel up, and then there we go. And then as it releases it, it allows it to come down, and of course the action of the wheel coming up is also going to trigger that little red flag there. So there we go, guys. I am very happy with that issue. Very technical issue. As you know, I do like my technical issues, and it's got me thinking about how the cogs work and how the motor will work. It's a shame we can't test it. One thing I am going to do, I'm rather bothered by that long cable trailing, and I don't know how long this motor is going to be like this. So what I want to do is I want to just bunch it up, just using the natural bends that were there already, and I'm going to get a piece of masking tape. I think that masking tape is too small for what I want to do, so I'll get these two pieces that I got ready for the cable, and there we go. And then that's nice and neat and tidy, so it won't get caught in the way of anything. So now we have 3 cables, well 2. We have one there for the motor for the undercarriage, one there for the motor for the propeller blades, and then we have another one inside the cockpit for the cockpit lights. So it really is progressing now, but we are over a third of the way through the build. In fact, we are over a quarter away of the total build. So that is issue 36 complete. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to catch you in issue 37, where we have a word I struggled to get to pronounce. We will be doing the upper and lower panels for the first aileron together with hinges and screws. If I've got that wrong, please by all means drop a comment and correct me. But yeah, so take care guys, I'll see you next week. Bye bye.